The sky above New York City was unusually quiet that morning. The usual hum of airplanes and the distant rumble of traffic had faded into an eerie stillness. People stopped what they were doing, stepping out of offices, homes, and cars to look up. A shadow loomed over the horizon, growing larger with each passing second. It wasn't a storm or a trick of the light. It was something far bigger, far stranger, something alien. The object descended slowly, its metallic surface shimmering like liquid silver under the sun. It was enormous, easily dwarfing the tallest skyscrapers in the city. As it hovered just above the ground, a low hum filled the air, vibrating through bones and making teeth clench. Panic rippled through the crowd below, but no one ran. They couldn't. They were frozen, staring at the impossible thing that now dominated their world. Jack Harper stood among the sea of stunned faces, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his leather jacket. He wasn't the kind of man who got rattled easily. Years as a soldier had taught him how to stay calm when everything around him fell apart. But this was different. This wasn't war or disaster. It was something humanity hadn't prepared for, something they couldn't fight with guns or bombs. Beside him, Mia Lopez clutched her notebook tightly, her knuckles white. She was a linguist by trade, someone who spent most of her days buried in books about ancient languages and alien communication theories. Now she found herself face to face with the very subject of her studies. Her heart raced, but not from fear. It was excitement mixed with dread. What would these beings want? Would they even bother speaking to humans before wiping them out? A bright flash erupted from the underside of the ship, blinding everyone momentarily. When the light faded, a platform lowered itself to the ground. Standing on it were three figures, tall and slender, their skin a pale blue-gray color. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning the crowd with cold precision. One of them stepped forward, raising a hand in what might have been a gesture of peace or dominance. Either way, it silenced the murmurs spreading through the crowd. "Humans," the figure said, its voice smooth and mechanical, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. "We are the Vryn. We come in search of knowledge, not conflict." Mia's breath caught in her throat. She recognized the tone immediately. It was being translated through some kind of advanced device. The words weren't spoken in English. They were processed and converted into something humans could understand. That alone told her how sophisticated these beings were. Jack narrowed his eyes, distrust written all over his face. "Knowledge," he muttered under his breath. "Yeah, right." He didn't trust the Vryn's sudden appearance or their claims of peaceful intentions. Too many sci-fi movies had taught him that aliens rarely showed up without an agenda. The lead Vryn continued, addressing the crowd. "Your species is intriguing, fragile, yet capable of great creation. We wish to learn more about you." Fragile. The word hung in the air like a slap across the face. Jack felt his jaw tighten. Sure, humans weren't built like tanks. They didn't have claws, sharp teeth, or armored skin. But fragile? That was pushing it. Before anyone could respond, the Vryn leader introduced himself. "I am Kyle," he said, his glowing eyes locking onto random members of the crowd. "You will assist us in our evaluation. If you prove worthy, we may consider including your species in our coalition." Worthy? Coalition? Jack exchanged a glance with Mia, who looked equally confused. None of this made sense. Why would these aliens care whether humans were worthy? And what exactly did evaluation mean? Cale gestured toward a group of soldiers standing nearby, likely part of the hastily assembled response team sent to deal with the situation. "Select representatives to accompany us. Those individuals will participate in our tests." Tests. The word sent a shiver down Jack's spine. Tests implied judgment, criteria, and failure. Failure usually meant bad things, especially when dealing with beings who could flatten entire cities with a flick of their wrist. As the soldiers began selecting volunteers, Jack felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Mia, her expression serious. "They're going to pick you," she whispered. "And me," he frowned. "What makes you so sure?" "You're ex-military. You'll be useful if things go south." And I'm a linguist. They'll need someone who understands language patterns. She hesitated, then added, "Besides, we're already here. Might as well step up." Jack wanted to argue, but deep down he knew she was right. Running away wouldn't solve anything. If anything, staying close to the Vryn might give them a chance to figure out what these aliens really wanted. Sure enough, moments later, a soldier approached them. "You two, come with us." Jack and Mia exchanged another glance, then followed the soldier toward the waiting Vryn. As they climbed onto the platform, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap. Still, he kept his head high, refusing to show fear. Fear was weakness, and weakness was something the Vryn seemed to thrive on. Once aboard the ship, the atmosphere changed completely. The interior was sleek and clinical, with walls that seemed to pulse faintly as though alive. Lights danced across the surfaces, casting strange shadows. Jack noticed that the other human representatives, a mix of scientists, engineers, and military personnel, looked as uneasy as he felt. Kale led them to a large chamber where a series of holographic screens displayed images of Earth. Maps, cities, oceans, all of it laid bare for the Vryn to study. Jack clenched his fists, resisting the urge to demand answers. "Patience," he reminded himself. "Patience. You will undergo trials," Kale announced, his tone indifferent. "Physical, mental, and strategic. Your performance will determine your value." One of the scientists raised a hand timidly. "What happens if we fail?" Kale's lips curled into what might have been a smile, if smiles could feel so chilling. "Failure is not an option." The room fell silent. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. There was no mistaking the threat behind those words. Whatever these trials were, they weren't just about proving worthiness. They were about survival. As the first test began, a physical endurance challenge involving running through an obstacle course designed to mimic harsh environments, Jack watched as several participants struggled. One young man, barely out of his teens, collapsed halfway through, gasping for air. Kale observed the scene with detached amusement. "Pathetic," he remarked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Such weakness. Perhaps we overestimated your species." Jack gritted his teeth, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Weakness? These people weren't warriors. They weren't trained for this. Yet Kale acted as though their struggles confirmed some preconceived notion about humanity's inferiority. Mia leaned closer to Jack, whispering urgently, "Don't let him get to you. Stay focused." He nodded, forcing himself to take a deep breath. She was right. Losing his temper wouldn't help anyone. Not yet, anyway. By the end of the day, exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. The Vryn dismissed them, instructing them to return the next morning for further testing. As Jack and Mia stepped off the ship and back onto solid ground, the reality of their situation hit them full force. "They're not here to help us," Jack said quietly. "They're here to judge us. And if we don't meet their standards, they'll wipe us out." Mia nodded, her expression grim. "We need to find a way to prove them wrong. To show them that we're more than what they see." Jack glanced at her, a flicker of determination lighting up his eyes. "Then we'd better start figuring out how to do that. Because if we don't, none of us are getting out of this alive." The next morning, the group of human representatives gathered outside the towering alien ship. The air was tense, thick with uncertainty and fear. Jack Harper stood apart from the others, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the shimmering hull of the Vryn vessel. He hadn't slept much the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kale's smug expression, heard his dismissive words about humanity's weakness. It burned inside him, a slow fire that refused to die down. "Mia." Lopez approached him, her notebook clutched tightly in her hands. She had been up late, too, scribbling notes and trying to piece together clues from the previous day's events. Her mind raced with questions. Why were the Vryn so eager to test humans? What did they really want? And most importantly, why did they seem so confident that humanity would fail? "Ready for round 2? She asked, forcing a small smile. Jack gave her a sideways glance. as ready as I'll ever be. The platform lowered again, and the same eerie hum filled the air. One by one, the humans stepped onto it, their faces pale but resolute. As they entered the ship, the cold, pulsating walls greeted them once more. This time, however, there was no warm-up period. Kale wasted no time getting straight to business. "Today," he announced, his glowing eyes sweeping over the group, "you will face challenges that require not just physical strength, but intelligence and teamwork. Prove your worth, or perish. Perish." The word echoed in Jack's mind like a death knell. He didn't doubt for a second that Kale meant every word. These aliens weren't here to play games. They were sizing humanity up, deciding whether Earth was worth keeping or destroying. The first challenge took place in a massive chamber filled with floating platforms, suspended above a deep chasm. The goal was simple: cross the chasm using the air. Platforms without falling. But the platforms shifted unpredictably, tilting and sliding as soon as someone stepped onto them. To make matters worse, the room was filled with a thick fog that made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. One of the scientists, a middle-aged man named Alan, volunteered to go first. He moved cautiously, testing each platform before committing his weight to it. For a while, it seemed like he might actually make it, but then a platform tilted sharply, sending him tumbling into the abyss below. A collective gasp rippled through the group as his scream faded into silence. Kyle watched the scene with detached interest. "Poor judgment," he remarked coolly. "Your species lacks adaptability." Jack clenched his fists, biting back a retort. Losing his temper wouldn't help Alan or anyone else. Instead, he focused on the task at hand. When it was his turn, he moved quickly, trusting his instincts rather than overthinking. His military training kicked in, allowing him to anticipate the movements of the platforms. By the time he reached the other side, sweat poured down his face, but he had made it. Mia followed close behind, her movements slower but deliberate. She wasn't as physically strong as Jack, but she compensated with careful observation and timing. When she finally joined him on the far side, she let out a shaky breath. "That was terrifying," she admitted, brushing strands of dark hair from her face. "You did good," Jack said, giving her a rare nod of approval. "We're still standing, that's what matters." But the tests didn't stop there. The next challenge involved solving a complex puzzle within a limited amount of time. Holographic symbols floated in midair, shifting and rearranging themselves constantly. The goal was to align the symbols in a specific pattern based on a set of cryptic rules displayed on a nearby screen. This was Mia's moment to shine. While the others struggled to decipher the symbols, she worked methodically, her sharp mind piecing together the connections. Jack stayed close, offering support when needed, though he knew this was her area of expertise. Together, they managed to solve the puzzle just seconds before the timer ran out. Kale observed their success with mild curiosity. "Impressive," he conceded, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "But intelligence alone cannot save you. Let us see how you fare in combat." Combat. The word sent a fresh wave of unease through the group. None of them were trained fighters, not like Jack. Still, they had no choice but to follow Kale into the next chamber, where a large arena awaited them. Inside, holographic projections of Vryn warriors materialized, armed with energy weapons and shields. "This is insane," muttered Ryan, the youngest member of the group. His voice trembled with fear. "How are we supposed to fight these things?" "We improvise," Jack replied, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. "Stay alert, watch my lead, and don't hesitate." The simulation began, and chaos erupted. The Vryn holograms moved with incredible speed, their attacks precise and relentless. Jack dove for cover behind a fallen pillar, grabbing a discarded weapon left behind by one of the earlier participants. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He fired at the nearest hologram, scoring a direct hit that caused it to flicker and disappear. Mia crouched beside him, her heart pounding. "What do we do now?" "Spread out," Jack instructed. "If we stick together, they'll pick us off one by one." Reluctantly, the group split up, each person trying to find their own shelter. Jack kept moving, drawing the hologram's attention away from the others. He knew he couldn't take them all down alone. But if he could buy enough time, maybe Mia or someone else could figure out a way to end the simulation. Ryan wasn't so lucky. Cornered by 2 holograms, he froze, unable to think clearly under the pressure. One of the projections struck him with a burst of energy, knocking him to the ground. Though the attack wasn't real, the psychological impact was devastating. Ryan curled into a ball, shaking uncontrollably. Cale appeared in the arena, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of amusement and disdain. Pitiful, he sneered. Such cowardice. Is this truly the best your species has to offer? Jack snapped. Without thinking, he charged at Cale, weapon raised. Before he could reach him, however, several Vryn guards intercepted him, pinning him to the ground. Struggling against their grip, Jack glared up at Cale, his fury boiling over. You don't know anything about us, he snarled. You think you can judge us after one day? You haven't seen what we're capable of. Cale leaned down, his glowing eyes boring into Jack's. And yet, all I see is weakness, fragility. Your kind is unworthy of survival. For a moment, Jack thought he might lose control completely. But then Mia stepped forward, her voice calm, but firm. Let him go, Cale. If you kill him now, you'll never understand what humans are truly capable of. Cale studied her for a long moment, then gestured for the guards to release Jack. Very well, but remember this, human. Your time is running out. Fail again, and there will be no second chances. When the simulation ended, the group was dismissed, their nerves frayed and their spirits low. Back on Earth, news of the tests spread like wildfire. Videos of the alien ship and reports of the trials dominated every news channel and social media platform. Public opinion was divided. Some viewed the Vryn as saviors offering humanity a chance to prove itself. Others saw them as invaders, testing the waters before launching an attack. Jack and Mia sat together in a quiet corner of the makeshift base set up near the ship. Neither spoke for a while, each lost in their thoughts. Finally, Mia broke the silence. There's something off about all this, she said softly. Why would the Vryn bother testing us if they already think we're weak? It doesn't add up, Jack nodded. You're right. There's more going on here than meets the eye. We need to figure out what they're really after, and fast. Mia flipped open her notebook, skimming through her notes. I've been analyzing their language, patterns. There are inconsistencies, phrases that repeat in ways that don't quite fit. I think they're hiding something. What kind of something? Jack asked, leaning closer. I'm not sure yet. But if I can crack their code, maybe we can find a way to turn the tables on them. Jack smiled faintly, admiration flickering in his eyes. You're smarter than you look, you know that? Mia rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a grin. Don't push your luck, Harper. As night fell, the city buzzed with activity. Protesters gathered outside government buildings demanding answers and action. Conspiracy theories ran rampant, fueled by rumors and speculation. Meanwhile, Jack and Mia worked tirelessly, poring over data and strategizing their next move. Unbeknownst to them, Cale watched the unfolding drama from aboard the Vryn ship. His expression remained unreadable, but a flicker of doubt crossed his features. Perhaps these humans weren't as simple as he had assumed. Perhaps they harbored secrets of their own. Little did he know, those secrets were about to change everything for both species. The days that followed were a blur of tension and exhaustion for Jack Harper and Mia Lopez. The test continued, each one more grueling than the last. Every challenge pushed the human representatives to their limits, both physically and mentally. But it wasn't just the trials themselves that weighed on them. It was the growing realization that the Vryn weren't here to help. Their arrogance, their cold calculations, their thinly veiled threats all pointed to something darker. Mia spent every spare moment analyzing the language patterns she had recorded during her interactions with the Vryn. She noticed subtle inconsistencies, phrases repeated in strange contexts, words that seemed out of place. It was as though the aliens were trying to hide something beneath their polished facade. Her instincts told her these clues could be the key to understanding their true intentions. Jack, meanwhile, focused on keeping the group together. Morale was dangerously low. After Ryan's breakdown in the combat simulation, several others began to crack under the pressure. Some refused to participate in further tests, while others lashed out in frustration. Jack knew they couldn't afford to fall apart, not when the stakes were so high. Late one night, after another round of exhausting challenges, Mia called Jack over to her workstation. Her laptop screen was cluttered with notes, diagrams, and highlighted text. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with urgency. "I think I've found something," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "What is it?" Jack asked, leaning closer. "It's in their language. There's a pattern, a hidden message buried in the way they phrase things. At first I thought it was just random repetition, but now I'm almost certain it's deliberate." Jack frowned. "Deliberate how?" "They're lying," Mia said bluntly, "about why they're here, about what they want from us." She tapped a section of her notes. "Look at this. Every time Cale talks about evaluating humanity, he uses phrases like resource assessment or potential integration. But those aren't neutral terms. They're business jargon. They're not here to decide if we're worthy of joining their coalition. They're here to scout Earth for resources." Jack's jaw tightened. "You mean they're planning to take what they want and leave us in ruins?" "Exactly," Mia replied. "And worse, they're using these tests as a cover. They're learning our weaknesses, figuring out how to exploit us. If we don't stop them, they'll strip Earth bare and enslave whoever survives." The weight of her words hit Jack like a punch to the gut. He had suspected something along those lines, but hearing it confirmed made it feel real and terrifying. "Do you have proof?" he asked. "Not yet," Mia admitted. "But I'm close. If I can decode more of their transmissions, I might be able to find evidence of their plans." Jack nodded. "Then we need to act fast. We can't let them keep playing these games." Before they could discuss it further, an alarm blared through the base. Everyone scrambled to attention as soldiers rushed in, shouting orders. A massive explosion rocked the area outside, sending tremors through the ground. Through the windows, Jack and Mia saw flashes of light in the distance, energy blasts fired from the Vryn ship. "They're attacking," someone shouted. Panic erupted as people ran for cover. Jack grabbed Mia's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We need to get out there and see what's happening. But we're supposed to stay inside," Mia protested. "We don't have a choice," Jack shot back. "If the Vryn are making their move, we need to know why, and how bad it is." They slipped out into the chaos, dodging falling debris and panicked civilians. The streets were filled with smoke and screams, the once familiar skyline now marred by flames and destruction. Hovering above it all was the Vryn ship, its sleek surface gleaming ominously as it unleashed wave after wave of energy blasts. Jack and Mia ducked behind a crumbling wall, catching their breath. "This isn't part of the tests," Jack muttered. "This is war." Mia shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "We didn't stand a chance. They played us from the start." As they watched, a group of Vryn soldiers descended from the ship, marching through the wreckage with ruthless efficiency. They rounded up survivors, herding them into containment pods that floated ominously behind them. Jack clenched his fists, anger surging through him. He wanted nothing more than to charge at the invaders, but he knew it would be suicide. Instead, he turned to Mia. "We need to warn the others. Get everyone underground, away from the city. If we can regroup, maybe we can fight back." Mia hesitated, then nodded. "I'll spread the word, but Jack, you need to be careful. Don't do anything reckless." He gave her a grim smile. "Reckless is my middle name." As Mia disappeared into the chaos, Jack moved through the shadows, gathering stragglers and directing them toward safety. Along the way, he encountered Emily Carter, a former athlete who had been part of the original testing group. Her face was streaked with dirt, but her determination burned bright. "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We survive," Jack replied. "And then we fight." Together, they helped organize a makeshift evacuation, leading survivors to an abandoned subway station deep beneath the city. Once there, they barricaded the entrances and set up a command center. Word spread quickly, and soon dozens of people gathered in the dimly lit tunnels, their faces etched with desperation. Back in the alien ship, Kale surveyed the devastation with detached satisfaction. His subordinates reported that resistance was minimal as expected. Humans were weak, disorganized, and easily subdued. Still, there was something unsettling about the ferocity with which some of them had fought back. It was fleeting, but it hinted at untapped potential. Our initial scans suggest significant mineral deposits beneath the planet's surface, one of his officers reported. Extraction operations can begin immediately. Kale nodded. Excellent. Begin processing the captives. Those who resist will be eliminated. And what of the ones who evaded capture? The officer asked. Kale's lips curled into a cruel smile. Let them run. Let them think they have a chance. When we crush their rebellion, it will serve as a lesson to any other species foolish enough to defy us. Unbeknownst to Kale, his words were being monitored. Back in the subway station, Mia worked tirelessly to intercept Vrin communications using equipment salvaged from the base. Her hands flew across the keyboard as she decrypted messages, piecing together fragments of information. Finally, she found what she was looking for: a blueprint of the Vrin ship's power core. They're vulnerable, she announced to the group gathered around her. Their technology relies on a central hub. If we can disable it, we might be able to cripple their operations. Jack stepped forward, his expression grim. How do we get to it? It's risky, Mia admitted. The core is heavily guarded, and even if we reach it, we'll need precise timing to shut it down without triggering a self-destruct mechanism. Emily raised her hand. I'll go with you. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. Jack hesitated, then nodded. All right, but we move fast and quiet, no mistakes. That night, the trio slipped out of the subway station and made their way toward the Vrin ship. The journey was perilous, with patrols scattered throughout the ruined city. They relied on stealth and quick reflexes to avoid detection, inching closer to their target with every step. When they finally reached the ship, they discovered an access hatch hidden beneath a pile of rubble. Using tools scavenged from the evacuation site, they pried it open and climbed inside. The interior was eerily silent, the usual hum replaced by an oppressive stillness. They moved cautiously, following Mia's directions to the power core. They approached their destination. Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide. But as they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a squad of Vrin soldiers. The aliens raised their weapons, their glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. Jack exchanged a glance with Emily, then smiled grimly. Looks like we're doing this the hard way. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, his instincts taking over. The battle was fierce and chaotic, but Jack and Emily fought with everything they had. For the first time, they realized something crucial. The Vrin underestimated them, and that was their greatest weapon. The clash inside the Vrin ship was nothing like Jack Harper had ever experienced. The aliens were fast, their movements precise and calculated. Their weapons emitted bursts of energy that crackled through the air, leaving scorch marks on the walls. But despite their technological advantage, they seemed unprepared for the ferocity of the human resistance. Jack moved with a speed he didn't know he possessed, dodging blasts and closing the distance between himself and the nearest Vrin soldier. He grabbed a fallen piece of debris, a jagged shard of metal, and swung it with all his strength. The makeshift weapon connected with a sickening crunch, sending the alien stumbling backward. Before it could recover, Emily Carter was there, delivering a swift kick that knocked it off balance. Together, they overwhelmed the first guard, leaving it incapacitated on the floor. Mia Lopez stayed back, her heart pounding as she watched the fight unfold. She wasn't trained for combat, but she did what she could to help. Using her knowledge of the ship's layout, she directed Jack and Emily toward blind spots and weak points in the Vrin defenses. Her voice remained steady, even as fear clawed at her insides. There's another patrol coming from the left corridor. she whispered urgently. "You need to move now." Jack nodded, signaling for Emily to follow him. They darted into a narrow passageway just as the second squad rounded the corner. The Vryn hesitated, scanning the area with glowing eyes. For a moment, it seemed like they might have missed the intruders. But then one of them spotted Mia, crouched behind a console. "She's here," the alien shouted, raising its weapon. Mia froze, her mind racing. She had no way to defend herself against an armed opponent. Desperation surged through her as she scrambled to her feet, searching for an escape route. Just as the Vryn fired, Jack appeared out of nowhere, tackling the alien to the ground. The blast missed Mia by inches, striking the wall behind her instead. "Stay down," Jack barked, wrestling the weapon away from the soldier. With a grunt of effort, he turned it on its owner, firing a burst of energy that sent the alien sprawling. Emily joined them moments later, panting heavily. "We can't keep this up forever," she said, glancing around nervously. "There are too many of them." "We don't have a choice," Jack replied grimly. "If we stop now, we're dead." "Keep moving." With renewed determination, the trio pressed onward, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the alien vessel. Every step brought them closer to the power core, but also deeper into enemy territory. The Vryn seemed to anticipate their every move, deploying reinforcements with alarming efficiency. It was clear they were running out of time. Finally, they reached the chamber housing the power core. The massive structure pulsed with light, emitting a low hum that vibrated through the floor. Wires and conduits snaked across the walls, connecting the core to various systems throughout the ship. Mia examined the setup quickly, her hands trembling as she worked to decipher the controls. "This is it," she said, pointing to a panel on the far side of the room. "We need to disable the main conduit. If we cut the flow of energy, the entire system will shut down." "How long do we have?" Jack asked, keeping watch at the entrance. "Not long," Mia admitted. "The core has fail-safes. If I don't disable it properly, it'll trigger a self-destruct sequence." "Great," Emily muttered under her breath. "No pressure, right?" Ignoring the sarcasm, Mia focused on the task at hand. Her fingers flew over the panel, entering commands and rerouting circuits. Sweat dripped down her face as she worked, each second feeling like an eternity. Outside the chamber, the sounds of approaching footsteps grew louder. "They're coming," Jack warned, gripping his improvised weapon tightly. "Hurry up, Mia." "I'm trying," she snapped, frustration bubbling over. Finally, after what felt like hours, she let out a triumphant gasp. "Got it." The hum of the power core faltered, then died completely. Lights flickered and dimmed, plunging the ship into near darkness. Alarms blared overhead, echoing through the corridors. The trio exchanged a glance, relief washing over them, until they realized the gravity of their situation. "We need to get out of here," Emily said urgently. "Now." Agreeing without hesitation, Jack led the way back toward the access hatch. The darkness slowed them down, forcing them to rely on instinct and memory to navigate the maze-like passages. Behind them, the Vryn regrouped, their glowing eyes cutting through the shadows like searchlights. Shots rang out, narrowly missing the fleeing humans. As they neared the exit, Jack noticed something strange about his own body. His senses felt sharper, his reflexes faster than usual. It was as though adrenaline had unlocked some hidden potential within him. He dismissed the thought, focusing instead on survival. There would be time to think about it later, if they made it out alive. When they finally emerged from the ship, the sight that greeted them was chaos. Fires raged across the city, casting an orange glow over the ruins. Survivors huddled together, in makeshift shelters, tending to the wounded and mourning the lost. Despite the devastation, there was a spark of defiance in the air, a refusal to surrender even in the face of overwhelming odds. News of the sabotage spread quickly. People gathered around Jack, Emily, and Mia, eager to hear what had happened. When Mia explained how they had disabled the Vryn ship's power core, cheers erupted. For the first time since the invasion began, hope stirred among the survivors. But Jack knew better than to celebrate too soon. "This isn't over," he reminded everyone, his voice cutting through the noise. The Vryn aren't going to give up that easily. We've bought ourselves some time, but we need to prepare for the next attack. His words sobered the crowd. They understood the truth behind them. The battle was far from won. Still, the small victory gave them something precious: belief. Belief that they could fight back, that they weren't powerless against the invaders. In the days that followed, Jack took charge of organizing the resistance. He divided the survivors into teams, assigning tasks based on skill sets. Some focused on gathering supplies, while others worked to fortify their underground base. Emily proved invaluable in training volunteers, teaching them basic combat techniques and strategies. Her experience as an athlete translated surprisingly well to guerrilla warfare. Meanwhile, Mia continued analyzing the data she had collected from the Vryn ship. She discovered fragments of information suggesting that the aliens' arrogance stemmed from centuries of conquest. They viewed themselves as superior beings, destined to dominate lesser species. This mindset made them predictable, overconfident, and dismissive of potential threats. They think we're weak because we lack claws or scales, Mia explained during a briefing. But history shows that humans adapt. We evolve. That's our real strength. Jack nodded, absorbing her words. So how do we use that against them? We hit them where it hurts, Mia replied. Their ego. Make them doubt everything they believe about us. Show them we're not the fragile creatures they think we are. The plan came together slowly but surely. Using scavenged materials, the resistance built crude weapons and traps designed to exploit the Vryn's weaknesses. They studied the aliens' movements, learning their patterns and vulnerabilities. Every piece of intelligence helped them refine their strategy. One night, as Jack stood guard outside the subway station, he noticed something odd about his reflection in a puddle. His teeth looked different, sharper, almost fang-like. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, but when he ran his tongue over them, he realized they really had changed. A chill ran down his spine as memories of the earlier battles flooded back. In the heat of combat, he had felt stronger, faster, more primal. Now it seemed those instincts were manifesting physically. He didn't tell anyone. Not yet. There was no time to dwell on it, not when the stakes were so high. Instead, he focused on preparing for the next phase of the Resistance's plan. Whatever changes were happening to him, he would deal with them later. When the Vryn launched their counterattack, the Resistance was ready. Ambushes and booby traps slowed the invaders, forcing them to divide their forces. Guerrilla tactics kept the aliens off balance, turning their numbers and technology into liabilities rather than advantages. Each victory, no matter how small, bolstered the humans' resolve. Kale watched the unfolding rebellion with growing unease. Humans were proving far more resilient than he had anticipated. Their creativity, adaptability, and sheer determination baffled him. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Could these fragile creatures truly pose a threat to the mighty Vryn? Determined to crush the uprising once and for all, Kale ordered a full-scale assault on the Resistance's stronghold. As the alien forces closed in, Jack rallied his team, reminding them of what was at stake. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "They think they've got us cornered. Let's show them they're wrong." The final stand began at dawn, the sky painted red with fire and smoke. The battle was fierce and brutal, pushing both sides to their limits. But as the fighting dragged on, something remarkable happened. One by one, members of the Resistance began exhibiting signs of heightened aggression and strength. Teeth sharpened, muscles tensed, and primal instincts took over. The Vryn, caught off guard by this sudden transformation, faltered. Kyle stared, in disbelief as Jack lunged at him, his newly sharpened teeth gleaming in the light. For the first time, fear flickered. The battle raged on with a ferocity that neither side had anticipated. The Vryn, armed with advanced technology and centuries of conquest behind them, found themselves struggling to maintain control. For every step forward they took, the humans pushed back twice as hard. What started as a desperate last stand for the Resistance had turned into something else entirely, a primal awakening. Jack Harper led the charge, his body moving with an intensity he barely understood himself. His sharpened teeth gleamed in the dim light as he growled low in his throat, charging at a group of Vryn soldiers. Each punch and strike carried a force that seemed unnatural, almost animalistic. He wasn't alone. Around him, other members of the resistance began to show similar changes, teeth lengthening, muscles tightening, movements becoming faster and more instinctual. Mia Lopez fought alongside them, wielding a makeshift spear with surprising skill. Though she hadn't experienced the same physical changes as Jack or some of the others, her mind worked like a weapon of its own. She shouted commands and directed attacks, using her knowledge of the Vryn's weaknesses to outmaneuver them. Her voice cut through the chaos, sharp and clear. "Flank them," she yelled, pointing toward a cluster of aliens who were focusing their attention on one section of the battlefield. "They're vulnerable on the left." Emily Carter moved, like lightning, darting between enemies with agility that defied logic. Her athletic background gave her an edge, but it was more than that now. There was a wildness in her eyes, a hunger that hadn't been there before. When she tackled a Vryn soldier to the ground, sinking her newly sharpened teeth into its arm, even she was startled by the savagery of her own actions. Cale watched from a distance, his glowing eyes wide with disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans were fragile, weak creatures, easy to subdue and dominate. Yet here they were, transforming into something far more dangerous right before his eyes. Their speed, strength, and aggression were escalating, with every passing moment, fueled by adrenaline and desperation. "They're adapting," one of his officers reported, his voice trembling. "Their bodies are changing. It's unnatural." Kyle clenched his fists, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. "Unnatural or not, they are still inferior. Deploy reinforcements. We cannot allow this rebellion to continue." But reinforcements weren't enough. The humans fought with a tenacity that bordered on madness. They used the environment to their advantage, setting traps and ambushing patrols. Every time the Vryn thought they had gained the upper hand, the resistance struck back harder, smarter, and faster. The tide of the battle was shifting, and Cale could feel it slipping away from him. Back in the subway tunnels, the resistance had set up a temporary command center. Wounded fighters lay scattered across the floor, tended to by volunteers who worked tirelessly to keep them alive. Despite the carnage above, there was a sense of hope in the air. People whispered about the strange transformations happening to their comrades, calling it a miracle or a gift from some higher power. Whatever it was, it gave them strength when they needed it most. Jack stumbled into the command center, blood smeared across his face and arms. He looked exhausted but unbroken, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. Mia rushed to his side, concern etched across her features. "You're hurt," she said, examining the gash on his forehead. "It's nothing," Jack replied, brushing her off. "How are we holding up?" "We're holding," Mia answered, glancing around the room. "But we can't keep this up forever. Sooner or later they'll break through." Jack nodded grimly. "Then we hit them where it hurts. Harder than ever." He turned to address the group gathered around him. Volunteers, fighters, survivors, all looking to him for guidance. He didn't want the responsibility, but he knew someone had to take charge. Taking a deep breath, he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "The Vryn think they've won. They think we're just animals scrambling to survive. But we're not just surviving. We're fighting back. And now we've got something they didn't count on." He bared his teeth, letting the sharp edges catch the light. A murmur rippled through the crowd, followed by nods of agreement. "We're predators," Jack continued, "and predators don't back down, not when everything we love is on the line." The words ignited a fire in the hearts of those listening. They cheered, raising fists and weapons in defiance. For the first time since the invasion began, they truly believed they could win. As night fell, the resistance launched a daring counterattack. Using stolen Vryn weapons and improvised explosives, they targeted key points of the alien ship's infrastructure. Power relays were destroyed, communication arrays disabled, and supply lines disrupted. The Vryn scrambled to respond, but their efforts were disjointed and ineffective. Cale paced the bridge of his damaged vessel, frustration boiling over. "Enough!" he roared, slamming his fist against a console. "This ends now. Bring me." the leader of these savages. Alive. A squad of elite Vryn soldiers descended into the fray, their mission clear: capture Jack Harper. They moved with precision, cutting through the resistance fighters with ease. But Jack was ready for them. Sensing their approach, he positioned himself at the edge of the battlefield, waiting. When the Vryn emerged from the smoke, Jack didn't hesitate. He charged at them, screaming a guttural war cry that sent shivers down their spines. One by one they fell, overwhelmed by his sheer ferocity. By the time the last soldier hit the ground, Jack was drenched in sweat and blood. But he stood tall, his chest rising and falling with each labored breath. Kyle appeared moments later, stepping over the bodies of his fallen troops. His expression was cold, calculating, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his glowing eyes. "You're stronger than I expected," Kyle admitted, his voice tinged with grudging respect. "But strength alone won't save you." Jack smirked, wiping blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. "You're right. It's not just strength. It's something you'll never understand, something you'll never have." With a snarl, Jack lunged at Kale, tackling him to the ground. The two rolled across the debris-strewn terrain, trading blows with brutal efficiency. Kale was no match for Jack's newfound power, his arrogance blinding him to the danger until it was too late. Finally, Jack pinned Kale to the ground, his sharpened teeth inches from the alien's throat. Kale struggled, but he couldn't break free. For the first time, fear flashed across his face. "Please," Kale gasped, his voice trembling. "Spare me." Jack hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Killing Kyle would end the battle, but it wouldn't bring back the lives lost during the invasion. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice low and menacing. "This isn't over," Jack growled. "Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that Earth belongs to us, and if they come back, they'll regret it." Releasing Kale, Jack stood and stepped back, allowing the defeated alien to scramble to his feet. Kale staggered away, his pride shattered, his confidence gone. As he retreated to his ship, the remaining Vryn forces followed, abandoning their assault on the city. The humans watched as the massive vessel lifted off, ascending into the sky and disappearing into the clouds. Cheers erupted from the survivors below, tears streaming down their faces as they embraced one another. Against all odds, they had won, but Jack knew better than to celebrate too soon. Turning to Mia and Emily, he gestured toward the horizon. "We need to clean up, rebuild, and prepare for whatever comes next." Mia nodded, her expression serious despite the relief washing over her. "We've proven we can adapt. Now we need to make sure we're ready." As the sun rose over the battered city, casting golden light over the ruins, the survivors began the long process of rebuilding. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious, thanks to their resilience, ingenuity, and newfound instincts. Humanity had shown the universe that even the meekest creatures could become predators when pushed to the brink. And somewhere deep within the galaxy, the Vryn remembered the lesson they had learned. Never underestimate the days following the Vryn's retreat were a mix of celebration and hard work. The streets of the battered city slowly came back to life as survivors began cleaning up the wreckage. Piles of rubble were cleared, makeshift shelters were built, and fires that had burned for days were finally extinguished. People worked together, their shared victory binding them in a way they hadn't felt before. But beneath the surface of relief and hope, there was an unspoken understanding. The fight wasn't truly over. Jack Harper stood on a hill overlooking what remained of the city. His leather jacket was torn and stained with dirt and blood. But he wore it proudly. In his hand he held a small piece of twisted metal, a fragment of the Vryn ship he had salvaged during the battle. It served as a reminder of what they had faced and what they were capable of overcoming. He clenched it tightly, his mind racing with thoughts of the future. Mia Lopez approached him, her notebook tucked under one arm. She looked tired but determined, her eyes scanning the horizon as if searching for answers. "You've been quiet," she said, standing beside him. "Thinking," Jack replied, his voice low. "About what happens next." Mia nodded. We need to rebuild. Not just the city, but everything, our defenses, our systems, our way of thinking. If the Vryn come back, and they might, we have to be ready. Jack glanced at her, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. Mia had always been the brains of the operation, the one who saw patterns where others saw chaos. Her calm demeanor balanced out his impulsiveness, and together, they had made a formidable team. We'll need more than brute force this time, Jack said. Last time we got lucky. Next time we might not. Mia agreed. That's why we need to study what happened to us during the battle, the changes, the instincts. Whatever it was, it gave us an edge. If we can understand it, maybe we can harness it. Emily Carter joined them moments later, carrying a tray of food scavenged from one of the abandoned buildings. She handed out portions to Jack and Mia before sitting down beside them. So, what's the plan? She asked between bites. Do we sit here and wait for round 2, or do we go after them? Jack hesitated, considering the question. We don't chase them. Not yet. First, we fortify. Second, we learn. And third, he paused, his jaw tightening. We prepare for war. Emily smirked. Good. I was starting to get bored. Despite the grim reality of their situation, the three of them shared a brief laugh. It was a small moment of levity in an otherwise heavy time, but it reminded them of why they had fought so hard. To protect moments like these, to preserve the humanity that made life worth living. In the weeks that followed, the resistance transformed into something greater, a coalition of survivors united by a common purpose. Under Jack's leadership, they established checkpoints, patrol routes, and early warning systems to monitor for any signs of alien activity. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to repair damaged equipment and develop new technologies using the remnants of the Vryn ship. Mia led a team dedicated to studying the biological changes that had occurred in some humans during the battle. Her research revealed fascinating insights. The transformations seemed to be triggered by extreme stress and adrenaline, unlocking latent evolutionary traits buried deep within the human genome. It's like our bodies remembered something ancient, Mia explained during one of her briefings. Something primal. When we were pushed to the limit, our instincts kicked in, and our bodies adapted to survive. Jack listened intently, his mind racing with possibilities. If they could replicate those changes, or even enhance them, they might stand a chance against future invaders. But he also knew the risks. Playing with biology was dangerous, and the last thing they needed was to lose control of the very thing that had saved them. As the city began to recover, stories of the rebellion spread far beyond its borders. News outlets around the world picked up the tale, turning Jack and his team into symbols of resilience and defiance. Protests erupted in cities across the globe, demanding stronger defenses and better preparation for extraterrestrial threats. Governments scrambled to respond, forming alliances and pooling resources in ways they never had before. But not everyone celebrated the victory. Some viewed the changes in certain humans with suspicion, calling them unnatural or monstrous. Whispers of fear spread through communities, dividing people who should have been united. Jack saw it firsthand when he visited a neighboring town to offer assistance. A group of locals glared at him, their expressions filled with distrust. "You're not human anymore," one man spat. "You're something else." Jack didn't argue. He simply turned and walked away, knowing there was no point in trying to convince someone who had already made up their mind. But the encounter stayed with him, a reminder that survival came at a cost, not just physically but socially and emotionally. Back in the city, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some survivors embraced the changes, seeing them as proof of humanity's potential. Others rejected them, clinging to the idea that being human meant staying the same. The divide threatened to unravel everything they had worked so hard to build. Mia noticed the growing rift and decided to address it head-on. She organized a meeting in the central square, inviting everyone to attend. When the crowd had gathered, she stepped onto a makeshift stage and addressed them directly. "I know many of you are afraid," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Afraid of change, afraid of what we've become. But let me tell you something, we haven't changed who we are. We've only uncovered parts of ourselves that were always there. Strength, resilience, adaptability, these aren't new traits. They're what make us human. Her words resonated with some, earning nods of agreement and murmurs of support, but others remained unconvinced, their skepticism rooted in fear of the unknown. Still, Mia's speech marked a turning point. Slowly but surely, people began to focus less on their differences and more on their shared goal: survival. Months passed, and the city became a beacon of hope for the rest of the world. Ruins were replaced with sturdy structures, gardens sprouted, in empty lots and children played in the streets once again. Life moved forward, carrying the scars of the past but refusing to let them define the future. Jack spent much of his time training volunteers, teaching them how to fight and how to think strategically. He encouraged them to embrace their instincts, without letting them consume them. Fear is natural, he told them, but it can't control you. Use it. Channel it. Let it make you stronger. Meanwhile, Mia continued her research, documenting every detail of the biological changes and sharing her findings with global networks. Her work inspired others to explore similar fields, sparking a wave of innovation that rippled across the planet. Humanity, once seen as fragile and insignificant, was proving itself to be anything but. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack found himself standing on the same hill where he had reflected after the battle. Beside him, Mia and Emily joined him, their silhouettes outlined against the fading light. "What do you think they'll say about us?" Emily asked suddenly. "When they write the history books, I mean." Mia smiled softly. "I think they'll say we were fighters, survivors, that we refused to give up no matter how bad things got." Jack nodded, his gaze fixed on the distant skyline. "And they'll say we showed the universe that even the meekest creatures can become predators when pushed to the brink." For a long moment, none of them spoke. The wind carried the sounds of laughter and rebuilding from the city below, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as humans. Far away, aboard a Vryn vessel drifting through the void of space, Kale stared at a holographic image of Earth. His expression was unreadable, but his glowing eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. The humans had proven themselves far more dangerous than he had anticipated. Their strength, their ingenuity, their sheer determination. It was unlike anything he had encountered before. "They will rise again," one of his officers warned, breaking the silence. "What do we do now?" Kyle clenched his fists, his voice cold and resolute. "We prepare, because if we ever meet them again, we must be ready." But deep down, Kale knew the truth. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not prey. They were hunters. And the next time the Vryn crossed paths with them, the outcome might be very different indeed.